Hi, I'm Arthur Moats, and I'm here to talk to you about my book, The Moats Theory of Life, and the amazing holiday deal we have going on right now. If you purchase a hardback book, you will receive a paperback copy half off as part of our holiday bundle. This book makes for a great gift for yourself or others and will leave you feeling inspired and impactful. So go to moatstheory.com right now and get your copy so you can start living a more fulfilled life.
What's up? It's the Arthur Moats Experience with Deke. I'm Arthur Moats, and that's my main man, Deke.
What's up, dude?
What's good, my friend? You know the usual. Another episode brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbooking app. Not only is it safe, but it is secure and reliable. And Deke, there is a promo code. Could you tell them what the promo code is, please?
You sure you want me to?
I mean, because they hear from me all the time. I just feel like it's better when it comes from you.
Okay. It's pretty simple. It's easy to remember. It's Moats. Moats.
Boom. Can't go wrong with that. So for all the first-time users out there, if you use the promo code MOATS, you'll receive up to $1,000 in deposit bonus money. So stop wasting time, download the app, use the promo code, and get an opportunity to make a little money. Oh, man, what's good, my friend, man? We got a lot on the docket today, baby. I'm excited. Man, you know how it is when you got those episodes and you're like, bro, we got a lot of content, man. We got to cover today. And today is one of those days.
This is prime time recording.
It is.
In terms of the time slot we're recording. And what's this, 9 p.m.?
Hey, man, listen, sometimes you got to step into prime time. Sometimes you got to get a Monday Night Football. We needed one of those, all right? We're getting a little Monday night action.
I agree.
So, a little change up. And it's even cooler because at the same time, we were actually watching the Pens game prior to this. It's still going on right now. And we're both kind of reacting. I'm like, oh, man, I think it's kind of good. But I turned it off a little while ago. You're like, hey, man, it's kind of rough right now, baby. I don't know.
I got it on my laptop right now. It's 1-1, 9 minutes left. The Rangers just had a ton of opportunities. So
yeah,
we'll see. But you're right. Like, how many times has that happened over these past however many games? The other team has a bunch of chances, but the Pens pull it out somehow.
And, I mean, when you're talking about them versus the Rangers, they've had a lot of success, especially of lately against the Rangers. And it's mainly because they've been able to start fast, which they did do again today, scoring first out the gate. The games that they've been successful in, they've scored early or at least have, had these crazy end of the second or end of the third period runs where they're able to get a goal or two. But in the games they've struggled, it was definitely too far in between. We saw that, especially when they went against Boston in back-to-back games.
I guess you can't be too down. I mean, it's only one goal, and it's halfway through the third period. So that's not bad compared to some of these other games.
Hey, man, I'll take it, especially when you think about, like I said, everything that they've had to deal with these past couple of days. I mean, you literally, your GM, Jim Rutherford at the time, resigns abruptly out the blue. So, I mean, I knew that threw a monkey wrench in the whole operation. Obviously, you're in the middle of a series with Boston, who is a very tough team. Obviously, the outcome of that reflected that. But then from there, you got to go on the road and travel to New York and just, pick yourself up and get back to it. So it was crazy, when you think about everything they've had to endure, but still somehow, some way, they're still in the mix right now, man.
So you dropped Jim Rutherford. Is that the first topic?
I'm just saying, man. What was your thoughts on it, baby? What was your thoughts?
Well, I think you have more, background information on this. I had no clue how important this dude was or how highly everyone thought of him within the organization. So Shiro was the GM whenever I was really paying attention to the Pens, and he was awesome.
Okay.
So they got rid of him in 2014-15. He comes in, and he probably, a lot of people are saying, was the main catalyst for those two cups in 16 and 17.
I mean, he was super aggressive in terms of the deals that he was making. Some people loved him. Some people obviously hated him. But either way, he was very, very progressive in terms of his approach of just turning over the roster. And we saw it that year, but then we also saw it again last year with some of the trades that he made, especially, right at the deadline, man, getting in some, just bigger quality names, guys like Jason Zucker and stuff like that. Rodriguez came through as well. I mean, he did a lot of that right around the deadline, but that has been his MO when you look at him throughout his career.
Like, he's always wheeling and dealing because I think they were saying like he's the one guy who will trade someone, but then a couple years later he's actually going to trade back for him. Like Kapanen is one of the examples. I forget if there's another one, but there was a couple of guys that he's done that with.
Well, even here in Pittsburgh was Brian Rust. I want to say he had traded him away and then traded him back. So okay. I mean, you see these type of things with Rutherford, man. He's just a very aggressive in his approach in terms of how he will maneuver his rosters in. The success has reflected it, but I also think that kind of has been the knock on him as well. It's like you like it, but then eventually it kind of catches up. And then from there, you get this little lull. And I think that's what people kind of viewed this season as a little bit with him, just because obviously it hasn't gotten off to the best of start. I mean, obviously it's still a good start for the Pens, but they still aren't viewed as the best team in the NHL right now. Now they have a chance to be, but they obviously got to work a lot more to get to that level. But as a whole, man, I just think that his impact is going to be felt in a big way because he did such a great job of just acquiring talent, not allowing anyone on the roster to become complacent. So that's why I thought, man, it was important that he was here, but then to see him just resign out the blue like that.
Rangers just scored, bro.
Oh, man, don't tell me that, baby. How much time we got left, man? How much time?
8:50.
Oh, plenty of time.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Now, I wanted to ask you then, what do you think was the main reason for him leaving? Mm-hmm. Because it kind of came out of nowhere. It's personal reasons, but then it doesn't seem like it's health related. There's some rumor. Have you seen some of the rumors or have talked about him even on the fan?
The thing that I've seen thus far was just, he didn't say, he said his health was fine. In fact, he noted the president. He was like, Joe Biden, who is, I think, 78. He was like, I'm a lot younger than him because obviously Rutherford is 71 years old. But, I mean, I saw some speculative things, but you know me. I'm not going to be the one to bring it up. You can bring it up and I'll react to it. But I just, I'm not
there was a deal for Letang.
That's what
and then Penn's ownership put the kibosh on it.
Yeah, that's definitely similar things to what I've heard. Yeah.
So if that's Rutherford's direction or kind of what he's thinking of, now that doesn't, from my opinion, I don't think trading Letang necessarily means it's going to be a rehaul when you're tanking the season because you still got a lot of quality players. I don't even know how good Letang's even playing this year, right?
Well, I mean, it's still early on, and obviously, like I said, for me, I still feel like these guys, I mean, if you start off fast, great, kind of like with the Steelers this year with no offseason. But with these guys, I was expecting a slower start just because of how fast the season ended for them, along with how many new players they had going into the end of the season last year when everything happened. But for Letang, I mean, when he's healthy, that's the biggest thing. He has to stay healthy. Obviously, he missed a good amount of time. I want to say it was last year dealing with some injuries. So that's going to be the big thing with him, man.
So that's the thing is a lot of people are saying with him resigning that he's upset because now he doesn't have like full autonomy over the team. Yeah. So, wow, if I don't have that anymore, why am I here? I want to take this in a certain direction. So I think that's kind of like the rumors what's going on. So if you're the Pens now, I guess they're trying to stay put for the most part. I don't know what type of moves they're going to be trying to make.
Yeah, I forgot the guy's name. He's been in the organization. It's Patrick Alvin, I want to say. He was the assistant GM under Rutherford, and now they've made him the intern GM for the time being. But they said that they're going to look to find somebody who is similar to Rutherford in terms of that aggressive win within the season. Approach. Well, from everything I heard, that's what they said. They're going to be very aggressive in this approach of replacing him, but they want somebody that's very much similar to his approach. So
that's weird because
the problem is though trying to find that during the season. That's tough.
But that's strange because it feels like you had that guy in Rutherford. Is it just 3 or 4 players that you can't trade? Maybe that's what it is.
I think this is the thing, though. From an organizational standpoint, you can want a guy that's going to wheel and deal as long as you got the final say-so, and that's fine. But if you're Rutherford and you feel like, hey, I don't want to stay here if I don't have full autonomy, then I don't think it's on the organization to even decide if he's going to stay or not. Because remember, it wasn't like he got fired. He resigned. So the beef wasn't from the organization side.
Only 1 year left on his deal, too. I think it was up after this year.
Yeah, so to me, I look at that as that was more so Rutherford. It was on him just being like, hey, if I don't have that, then I don't want to be here, or whatever it was that he felt was that strong. But it was more so from his end because he was the one who resigned. If it was the Pens firing him, different conversation, right? Then we could go the whole approach of, well, they did have that guy in house, man. That why would they want to follow that up? But when you think about him resigning, it's like, no, they wanted that. He just chose to leave. So now they got to try to find the next best thing that's similar to him. That's at least how I took it.
But if you put all that together, it makes sense as to why someone would think there was a Letang trade and they had it. And then all of a sudden ownership put the kibosh on it. If you add all that together.
Agree. And you know what else it reminds me of? That Lagoli situation we was talking about as well.
What are you talking about?
And remember, we were talking about how, in terms of Tristan Jarry, right? We said, man, he got the contract, and we would assume that he's supposed to be the guy, right? Full belief, everybody's backing him. But we said that it just seemed as if Mike Sullivan didn't view Jarry the same way as management did with the deal that they gave him, which was why we were talking about how they pulled him, and I think it was the third game of the season. But then from there, you could just see how they were still allowing Casey to get
back-to-back starts for DeSmith right here. I know he played good last game, but still.
Yeah, but still, so just to think, this is a guy, you just gave this guy a contract this offseason. So you would assume that, hey, this is supposed to be your guy, and especially in a condensed season, it's only 56 games. So every game is important. You don't have that luxury of, we could drop multiple games and we'll still be fine. No, this is a very, very much competitive season because of the short length of it. So when I see that and then I hear these reports, it kind of makes me feel like, man, maybe there was a little bit of a dysfunction between the GM and coaching staff and organization as a whole in terms of how they view certain players and their overall belief. I mean, these are the type of things that it makes you really question that.
Because as of right now, seems like it's a 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know what they're going to be. I'm assuming right now, based off all this, that's probably what it's going to be going forward. I mean, they're playing at similar levels. I think
they are.
Jarry's little run that he had for 3 or 4 games, it looked like he had the upper hand over DeSmith. But then, DeSmith's last game, I thought he played pretty well despite, I think, some of the defensive woes. And then this game, he's not playing too bad. But it might go.
And I will say this too. I feel like Jarry kind of got the short end because Jarry got the Bruins.
Oh, yeah.
DeSmith gets the Rangers. It's a little bit different. I mean, we're not taking a shot at the Rangers, but it is a little bit different.
My eye test. Based off my eye test, I say Jarry. I just think he's got more talent. Even with some of DeSmith's earlier games, he made some saves, but there was always something sketchy. I'm like, oh, damn, dude. I feel like he got lucky on this. I don't know if I trust him.
See, I just feel like, in my mind, I have to guard against the name recognition because I recognize Jarry. It's no different than when it was Fleury, and it was like, well, man, no, it's Fleury. It's got to be Fleury. Like, I understand Murray is this new guy and he's playing pretty well, but no, this is Fleury. I'm trying to guard against that again because in my mind, I'm like, well, it's Jarry. We've seen Jarry. Like, we know Jarry. Jarry's Jarry. Like, it's cool, man. I mean, he beat out Murray a little. I mean, yeah, he did beat out Murray. I mean, that's why they ended up making the move. But I'm like, nope, I'm not taking that approach. I know what I've been seeing. I know who I feel has been playing better, even though they might not necessarily, get the style points, kind of like what you're referring to in terms of the eyeball test. To me, I'm just like, DeSmith is playing better right now. So that's why, for me, I'm leaning more to him.
Okay, interesting. Goalie controversy. I'm sure that's how.
Who would have thought this would have happened, right?
I'm sure that's probably how it is, though. You think of with the Steelers with running backs, like, who's your guy? I got Connor. I got Snow. Who's your receiver one? So it's probably the same thing. It's probably like a 50-50 split, maybe a 60-40 across Penguins Nation with the goalie that they like.
I mean, at least in our situation, we do have 2 very capable goalies. It's not like we're referring to either one of these guys as bums or not varsity, right? And where's a Coach Tomlin? I just, for me, it's just personal preference. I like the guy that's playing hot, not the guy that has the potential to do spectacular things, because I do feel like Jarry is the more talented goalie, but I just don't feel like he's playing as well as DeSmith is right now.
All right. Anything else on Rutherford, Pens, roster construction?
I just hope by the time we're done with this episode and we uploaded it, that the Pens would have at least have won. That's what I'm hoping. Other than that, we're good.
They're on a power play right now. 5:20 left.
Listen, that's another thing. The Pens and their special teams. Holy cow, man. It's bad, bro.
I did tune in a little bit before we started recording, and
yes,
I don't think they got a shot on net on the one time that they had the power play.
Man, so obviously this doesn't include this game right here, but throughout their past 3 games, they were 0-13 on power plays. They haven't scored a goal on 13 power play attempts. That's bad, man. And then speaking of versus the Rangers, they've been 0-4 versus the Rangers in their multiple matches they had with them already, not counting tonight. In power plays. You can't do that. And we already highlighted the woes that they've had on the defensive end when they're in the power plays as well, man. When they're trying to kill the power play. So yeah, man, that's still a part of their game that they got to get out of that thing quick, man. Just get it fixed, because that's the part that's been killing them. I mean, you look at a lot of their goals that they've allowed, it's been on power plays, man.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, 2-1 right now. Man. Still 4 minutes left.
Oh, man. So we shall see, baby. We shall see. But it's time to talk a little bit about them Steelers, baby. Because we got Steeler news. Shout out to the football guys, the content guys.
We got a lot of hot topics with football.
Dude, what? You think about what we had to endure last year during the pandemic, no sports, and we was kicking it out there. We was getting the content. We was keeping it rolling. Now we got content galore. We've been rewarded, Deke. We've been rewarded. But first off, we do got to talk about a little bit of a sadder tone. We had a passing in the Steelers family, man. Mrs. Rooney, Miss Patricia Rooney. This is Art Rooney II's mother, the wife of the late Ambassador Dan Rooney. She passed away over the weekend at 88, but they did say she was with her family. And they were able to, just be with her as she went on home, man. So, it's a moment of silence for that, man. Anytime, you get somebody to her status passing, it's always sad, but she definitely was impactful, man. So, moment of silence, please. All right. Chair, man. So that was the first thing, man. Definitely sad to, hear about that. But the second thing, man, we had a hiring. We did recently, man. Yep. This just broke right before we hopped on. The Steelers promoted assistant offensive line coach Adrian Clem to officially being the head offensive line coach now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, he was a part of the organization last year. I actually want to say the past 2 years, if I remember correctly. He started out with UCLA, coaching there from 2012 to 18. Obviously, was drafted by the Patriots, was a 3-time Super Bowl champion with them. But I guess my initial reaction to the hiring, I kind of felt a little bit like I did initially when they announced the Matt Canada thing, man. It was more so just you don't really know if they interviewed anyone else. You just hear them do the promotion from within. So initially, it kind of left me with just all right, status quo, safe hire, promote from within situation. But I do want to give the guy a chance. It's just, like I said, I haven't seen him as the head guy. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of experience to that extent. And then I just think about, the situation that he was just under when he was under Sean Surratt for the past 2 years and how that situation transpired. It just, makes me a little bit hesitant to be as excited.
You're like, if you're learning from him.
Right. I'm like, I say, because at least with Surratt, he was under Munchak, and we saw how dominant the O-line was under Munchak. So it's like, okay, it makes sense to go in-house, right? Get the second in command. But seeing how the O-line played these past 2 years, it's like, I don't know if I necessarily want the second in command to that. But
yeah, but maybe the second in command to Munchak just was a worse coach, and maybe this dude in his own right will be a way better coach. You know what I mean? Like sometimes things just don't make sense.
I'm hoping that, and I'm also hoping that, obviously his championship pedigree as a player, I do think that's going to help out. And he is a younger coach. I want to say he's definitely younger. He's not too much older than, 35, 36. He's in that age group. So I do think it's going to be good in terms of him being able to relate to some of these younger guys, because obviously the O-line is, if not this year, definitely next year, going to be doing, the overhaul to a younger group. So he will be able to, like I said, connect with those guys a little bit better and stuff like that. But Yeah, for me, man, I just kind of feel, like I said, just a little bit indifferent on it because I just feel like it's status quo. I feel like this is what they do in terms of the Steelers, but I'm not necessarily a fan of it. But I don't want to make it come off as, something towards Adrian because we obviously haven't seen him and we don't know what he's capable of. But it's just initial reaction. You're like, come on, man.
You bring up good points. It's almost like the same thing as Canada. Let's give him a chance, but then at the same time, I've seen a bunch of stuff on Twitter about people flipping out, and this is what the Steelers do, hire in-house, this is really uninspiring. But then you could spin it in a positive light, like you said, younger coach. There's some reports that saying he definitely helped in Dotson's development last year, so why not give him a chance?
Boy, and we know how you feel about Dotson, baby. So
he's the man.
If he's the Dotson crafter, if he was molding Dotson, then hey, I am extremely excited. That you know what? But we will say this now: it's a lot easier to mold some of that younger clay. Right now, the rest of the clay isn't too fresh. It's a little bit seasoned. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that clay as this offseason progresses. But so as a whole, I like
you're thinking Pouncey and DeCastro are back then. Is that what you're feeling?
Well, we're going to transition into that perfectly because with the comments coming from Big Ben in terms of him wanting to come back and do everything that he can for the team, that instantly tied him to Pouncey because obviously everybody knows to this point that him and Pouncey have always said, especially these past couple of years, that they want to go out together. They want to retire together. So hearing that Ben wants to return and will do whatever it takes to return from a contractual standpoint, now people are wondering, okay, is Pouncey going to be the guy? Is he coming back? So it's definitely interesting to see like that whole dynamic to me.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about this Ben contract? Because obviously, I was thrilled about it. I got all the quotes. Man. I got all the quotes that I need to see. I'll come back. I don't care about my play or my pay. I just want to help the team win next year. That's all.
Exclamation point.
Oh yeah,
I don't care about my pay this year. I said,
they should have thrown it in all caps even too.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, double down on it, right?
That's all I need to see, man. I was hyped that whole day.
Yeah, man. But what he's basically saying is, he'll be 39 next year. Obviously, it will be his 18th season if that were to happen. And I don't know the timing of whose report came out first between Mr. Rooney and Big Ben, but they were kind of around the same time. And it was funny because it was right after we recorded, and did a whole segment on this. And we were kind of talking about, man, is Mr. Rooney going to be open to him even being back at that 41? And obviously later that day, Mr. Rooney comes out and says that they do want Ben back, but it will not be under the 41. And he's going to have to be very flexible from a contractual standpoint so they could even explore him returning. So I did initially like that from Mr. Rooney because it at least let us know that, all right, they're going to do what it takes financially to make it work for the team. And then obviously that put the ball in Ben's court. But then to hear Ben say he's extremely open to it and he doesn't care about his pay, I like that as well. Now, obviously, it's a lot more that goes into that statement, and we'll get into that. But as a whole, I just like the fact that he was open to it because that was the other question mark, right? We were all saying, well, hey, man, we could restructure. We could do this and do that. But we kept saying, well, what if he's not open to it? Is he going to want to do that?
But yeah, because we didn't hear from him up to that point.
Correct. Yeah. So it was a lot of just uncertainty surrounding if he would even be open to adjusting his contract or if he was going to play hardball with the organization.
You kind of felt it like after his initial press conference from the Browns game, you kind of felt that hopefully he was leaning that way because he was like, I hope they want me back. And I think the givens with that statement, though, were like, you're probably going to have to rework your contract, though. So that's what we were hoping. But then to get the official statement, I was amped.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So just to give a little bit more details in terms of how this scenario works. So I know initially when you hear him say, hey, he'll play for whatever, it doesn't matter, whatever it takes for the team to win. Initially, a lot of people will probably assume, well, hey, man, just have him play for $1 million or play for $2 million. He'll only have a $1 million or $2 million cap hit. That's not the case. In theory, that would have been, but because when he signed his extension, he got the signing bonus. They they divided the cost of the signing bonus and the cap hit over the years. So throughout the years, it's already ballooned to $21 million bare minimum. So regardless if he makes $0, it's going to have a $21 million cap hit. And that's what we're seeing in terms of if he retires or not, that 21 is going to hit. So best case scenario, right? Because this would be his 18th season, his minimum salary, right? The minimum that he could just contractually play for legally is $2 million. So to do the math, you say, okay, the $2 million, you just tack that on to whatever. I mean, obviously you tack the $2 million to the $21 million. It'll be a $23 million cap hit. Now that's him taking the absolute bare minimum $2 million salary. If he's not going to do it, if you're talking about a $10 million salary, then do the math. Okay, 10 plus the 21, you get 31. If it's 15, all right, and so forth and so forth. So now you can just see how even though this was the first step and it was a significant step, there's still a lot more that has to get worked out in terms of what number does Mr. Rooney and the Steelers feel comfortable with Ben going out there for a cap hit. And then obviously what number does Ben feel comfortable going out there to play under? Because I mean, we've all said that statement at some point in time, man, we'll play for whatever, man. We just love the game. We'll play for free, this and that. It sounds good to the people. It sounds good to the press, but trust me, it's a reason why the contracts are the way they are. If people want to play for free, we wouldn't have to have agents. Then when they need to negotiate a long-term extension and things like that, if he didn't care about his money, it sounds good. It gets the people going, but trust me, we all care about it. So the thing now is going to be, okay, Ben, what value, like what dollar amount is it worth you? You know, is it worth it to you? Because we all have that number, right? He might say, hey, I'll come back and play for 10. Anything under 10, I don't want to do it. He might say 5. Anything under 5, I don't want to do it. Compared to what he would, you know, is scheduled to make or what he would normally be making, that is crumbs to him, you know? But to him, he might say, I'm willing to play for that much less than the 20-something million that I'm scheduled to make or 30-something million that I'm scheduled to make. So it really just is going to depend on him and the team. Like I said, just finding that middle ground. But to hear both of them saying that they're open to it, I'm at least happy about that because that's the first step.
How do you see it playing out? What do you project? Because there's a $15 million roster bonus coming up right in March. Mm-hmm. So what could they do with that? I know that is definitely like a deadline or a marker with this, right? And then there's also some speculation of just even extending it out for 2 or 3 years. We talked about that in the past.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So the deadline they're talking about is when the new league year starts. I want to say it is March 15th. It's always around that like second week of March. I always laugh because anytime I was a free agent, it's typically around my birthday. And I always tell my wife, hey, she's like, what you want for your birthday? Just to be signed, you know. Birthday's on the 14th. Can I get signed somewhere, please?
Dude, you made it 9 years.
Hey, man, I had some good birthdays. So I'm saying, you know, it was all good. But that, to me, in terms of what I think will happen, man, it's really tough without knowing the number for Ben. To me, I don't think he's less than 10, personally, because if I'm Ben and you think about what he's been making throughout these years, 20s, 30s, to go down to 10, now granted, you have to understand this. We're talking about this from a football perspective. It's a lot different than just your regular person. And that's another reason why typically we don't like to talk money or publicly talk about contracts, because a lot of times, the consumer, the fans, they just, to them, it's just a big number, right? It's hard to fathom at times. But in this scenario for Ben, you think about how much money he's made, it's just a different ballpark. So to me, 10 is probably the lowest that I see him coming back for. Now he could surprise me. And if he does,
$2 million.
Because obviously, if he does 2, I would be thoroughly surprised, impressed, blown completely away.
The GOAT.
That's all I'm gonna say. If he came back for $2 million, for sure, you could goat him up for that, because now you're really taking it for the team. I personally don't say. And honestly, I don't blame him. I wouldn't do it for $2 million. So that's why for me, I'm just like, Ben, you got a lot more. That $2 million, they're gonna stress you out for that too. You know what it takes to play. You in the quarterback, man. Listen, it was times when I played that I felt like they weren't even paying me for like the game. You just pay you to like deal with just everything. Like it's just so much that you're constantly just dealing with them. For Ben as the quarterback, God.
Well, that's what Favre. I remember Favre talking about that whenever he was going back and forth between retirement and stuff. He's like, I hate everything else except just playing football on Sundays. That's the thing I love.
It was so many times that I would just look at my wife and be like, man, if I could just play the game, practice, and no media, no fans, just everybody just away, I would love it. But you just get so tired because you're constantly criticized, put up on a pedestal. Once you get on the pedestal, then they pull you down off the pedestal. Once they break you down off the pedestal, they build you back up, put you back on the pedestal. It's just a roller coaster over and over. So that's why I'm like, if I'm Ben, man, hey, listen, if he were to come back for 2, that man, bless his heart. But I don't personally, I wouldn't want him to do that, man. Like 10 is the, and 10 is gross. It is grossly underpaying him when we're talking about Ben Roethlisberger. Like, and we talked about this a little bit as well in that previous podcast as it pertains to Ben. Just because we were talking about whether or not we would want him back, it wasn't an indictment on his talent. It was more so the $41 million and it not the productivity not equaling up to that. But in terms of him still being a good quarterback, yes, he's still a good quarterback. So yeah, you wouldn't pay just a good quarterback $10 million. I mean, you think about that, right? The $10 million.
Brady 25, Breeze 25, right, like, Rivers 25 last year.
Right. So when you're talking about 10 is like a Jacoby Brissett. It's like disrespectful. Like, ugh. So that's why I said like absolute worst case would be 10. I just don't see him going that low. But like I said, it's going to be interesting because the higher the number is for his salary, the higher that cap hit goes. So now you see the dilemma that he's in and the organization is in. And that's why, to me, I'm just like, all right, let's see how this thing plays out, man. But like I said, the first step of them both saying that they want to be back and they're at least open to him coming back, I think is a huge step because regardless of what they do this offseason as pertains to quarterback, because Mr. Rooney did say that they will be looking to add another quarterback. He said that they're going to look through every resource. So that means draft, trade.
Are we going to have agency. 5 QBs on the roster?
The way he's talking about it is he definitely said that. And matter of fact, I even wrote it down. Let me get the quote.
Because he talked highly about Mason. I don't know if he mentioned Haskins or not, but then
because literally. Mm-hmm.
But then, he was like, I think we're even going to add another QB or look to add another QB. He said, I'm like, what?
He said, if you look at our quarterback room right now, it's safe to say that we will be adding another quarterback this offseason, and we're going to comb through every resource or something like that or all methods possible. So they're definitely looking to build it up and make it more competitive, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, you think about, was it last year? Who was it? They had with Paxton Lynch, JT Barrett, Duck, Mason, Ben. That was 5 they carried into camp last year. So, I mean, if you can upgrade those 5, and now you're looking at a 5-piece with 2 first-round draft picks, a third round or a 4th rounder, things like that. I mean, I think that you can make it highly competitive. So, I don't think that's a bad thing. I like it.
I think I'm in a better spot now than I was last year, where it's just like, do whatever you got to do. I feel comfortable with Ben, especially seeing him this year. You know, with the 33 touchdowns, I've said it how many times, I feel like he's still got it left, still got it in the tank, has the arm talent and all that. So I think I'm a little bit more secure in, all right, Ben's good. I got to see a full season of him play. He's healthy. So I'm a little more secure now. So it's like, bring in whoever.
I'm glad to see that you're past your insecure stage when it comes to Ben. That's growth. That's big time growth right there.
Dude,
man.
you gotta think though. Dude, no, hold on. You gotta give me a break. You gotta think that was the first year for me. I didn't have Ben as my starting quarterback, and he was out. So this is later in his career, major elbow surgery. My whole thing was just like, let's give him the chance back. Let's not try to bring any outside noise. Just let him be the starting quarterback. That's it. So, and then I got to see that. I'm good.
I can respect that. I can definitely respect it, man. But yeah, I do think that, and obviously, I'm excited about Dwayne Haskins. I think that he is very talented. And obviously, my reactions and film reviews of him, express that. But make no mistake about it, Ben is still the best quarterback right now on that roster. Like I said, Haskins can grow into it and potentially be better than him if he develops like that and obviously works crazy hard. But as it stands today, Ben still gives his team the best chance to win. But I do like the fact that they are going to, make sure that they're keeping it competitive, making sure that, hey, if Ben were to, start playing bad or go down for whatever reason, right? And you feel like you got to pull the trigger and make a move, at least you have this already in-house. You already have these pieces in place and you're going to make sure that it's going to be a competitive situation for those guys. So that to me, I like a lot. I think that that's a safe move until you decide on what you're going to do going forward. I mean, and it's funny too, the more I get to thinking about these quarterbacks coming out in this draft and hearing Mr. Rooney, what he was saying, I was like, man, I turned on the Senior Bowl. I turned on the Senior Bowl. I said, all right, let me go see what some of these young guys looking like. And
these are just
up there.
These are just the seniors.
These are just the seniors.
There's like 6 or 7 this year.
Yeah, but I got a chance to see Mac Jones again. And I was like, man, he just looks the part.
You like him?
I do, but I'm skeptical, and I've already told you why. But then I think back, I'm like, well, you brought up the great scenario when you said Joe Burrow. You said, man, Joe Burrow had a ton of talent around him, but he was still able to be successful. To me, I'm just like, I like it. I see it. It looks good. I love his demeanor. I love his control of the offense.
You think,
seeing him in the Senior Bowl practices.
You think he looks more talented than Tua?
I feel like Tua is more electric, but I feel like Mac is the better quarterback, if that makes sense. I think like Tua is more in the vein of a Kyler Murray in terms of they have to be great for their team to win.
But Tua seems less explosive, at least based off that rookie year.
Right. And I don't want to call him a poor man's Kyler Murray, but that's kind of the vibe that he gives me. Whereas Mac puts me more in the mindset of a Joe Burrow, in terms of, man, he could make the throws. You can see the leadership, but obviously you're questioning, is it going to translate when all the competition is equal? Because you look at the talent he had at Alabama, it was stacked. It was crazy stacked. But it still doesn't take away from things that I see when I watch him. I'm watching him in practice making these throws, and the touch that he has on the ball, the arm power that he has on the ball, just understanding when and how to move within the pocket. And he's fast enough. Like, to me, so...
I mean, Joe Burrow's a good comp. Isn't that exactly what you would say with Burrow?
Well, when I think of him, I'm like, I feel like if Mac came out last year and he played like how he played this year, I think that he would be in that conversation for the top overall pick.
The QBs are just so stacked this year.
Yeah, this year is insane. I mean, you look at Lawrence, Fields. I mean, we could go down the list of all these.
The kid from BYU, Trey Lance.
Absolutely, man.
Trask.
It's just a pack. Like any of these guys, in any given year could have been a top 2 or number 1 overall pick, but they just so happen that they're all coming up right now. So that has ultimately pushed Mac Jones back a little bit. But I think that, man, that's a guy that I could potentially see them flirting with that 24 if he was available, knowing that, hey, man, if we got the deal done with Ben, Bill is still the guy this year. Now I got competition. At least, with Haskins and Mac, they could push each other a little bit. Obviously, Mac would have the nod because of where he was drafted at. But I just like that whole environment. I like that competitiveness because now I know my QB room is secure. Whichever direction we go, injuries, competition, we're good to go. So that's why for me, I'm just like, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't.
I'm starting to feel insecure again.
Oh, stop it, man. Come on, man. Listen, Ben's the guy. All right.
I get that. But no. I'm already thinking to next year. Say we draft one of these first round QBs.
Oh, man. Come on.
Dude, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, hey, who knows? I mean, Rooney said it. So this is just kind of, we're going off what he's saying. If this is the direction Steelers organization are going. Yeah.
Like, if he wasn't so adamant about it in terms of saying...
We would just be assuming Mason and Haskins.
And yeah, okay.
Which we're both fine with, I think, for this year, yeah.
But when he doubled down on it the way that he did and then went on to say, we're going to, go through all avenues, now you have to realistically look at that 24th pick and see, okay, could a quarterback potentially be in that area? Because if it is... Now I feel a lot more, stronger about them potentially grabbing a guy there compared to beforehand. It was more so, all right, Ben's going to be back. They're going O-line or running back. That's what it's going to be. But in this scenario, now I think that quarterback definitely becomes a lot more in play, man.
He left it open-ended because I'm still thinking, back in my mind, I got to be thinking offensive line and running back still. But, yeah, because I don't know, do they address quarterback through free agency? Do they address that later in the draft? But I guess it brings up, to your point, that potential, at least now, a quarterback could be in the mix for late round 1.
Absolutely. And then I've seen people in terms of their philosophy on drafting offensive linemen, And I've heard some where they say if you're not getting a guy in the top 10, top 15, you don't draft offensive linemen. I've heard that. And then I've also seen how the Steelers do it in terms of they don't mind taking a guy early on if they absolutely love him, first or second round. And we've seen it pay off for them as well. So that to me is going to be interesting because that O-line and running back are very similar in terms of how they're valued as well. In terms of, man, all right, we might be able to, especially interior offensive line. If we're talking left tackle is different, but interior offensive lineman is just a different perspective in terms of how teams address it. But with the running back position.
What about left tackle, though?
Well, that's what I said. I said left tackle is different.
Okay.
Left tackle is different.
Gotcha.
But interior offensive line, to me, if it's not a surefire, this is a generational talent, they don't really draft those type of guys. Typically, you get them at the end, 6th, 7th round or undrafted, and you're fine. But with running back, that's going to be the unique situation because at least with O-line, you kind of have a blueprint, right? If they bring back Pouncey and DeCastro, well then boom, okay, this is how it's going to proceed. They just got to, address left tackle. But if it's no Pouncey or no DeCastro or some combination, well, okay, it's more of a priority there. But running back, the reason why it's so up in the air is, at least right now, we know that they said they weren't planning on bringing back James Conner. But you don't know how they feel about a guy like Benny Snell, a guy like Jalen Samuels. Obviously, they drafted McFarland last year. Right, so it's like, how do they feel about those guys? And that's the part, to me, that's the super wild card, because in one instance, I can see them saying, well, hey, man, we're confident in Benny Snell. He's a young workhorse, James Conner mold. And then we'll go true running back by committee with Anthony McFarland as well. And, depending on how they want to address, getting a guy either later on throughout the draft or free agency, they could do that. But then they could take the other approach and say, we don't trust or we don't love necessarily any of these guys as the RB1. Let's go get a guy early in the draft. And then that's a whole nother scenario. So to me, that's the part where I'm just kind of like, man, I don't know which way they're going to go necessarily with this thing, man.
Yeah, if I had to take a guess, I'm just assuming they flip-flop one way or another. If they pick the lineman first round, they're just going to take running back second round. Running back first round, take the lineman in the second round. That's my assumption. And I think I'm not 100% sure on the offensive lineman, but I think there's talent for running back in both the first and second round. And the first round, I know there is for offensive linemen.
All I'm going to say is this.
What?
I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to hold true to who they are, and there will be an outside linebacker or a linebacker select. All right, watch.
There was a mock draft someone did, and they had us taking a linebacker, and someone said everyone's going to be pissed about this.
Just think about this. Right now, who are your outside linebackers? T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Tazar Skipper. That's it. Bud Dupree, he's going to be hitting the market, right? Was it Ola Daney hitting the market? So right now you don't have a lot at outside linebacker.
Let's do that in the third round, though.
I'm just saying they could look to do that, right? Because obviously we definitely saw how TJ Watt's productivity drastically declined as well once Bud went down. So depending on how they feel about Highsmith for a third round pick, that could change how we look at this defense. We definitely saw the lack of pressure that they got as the season went on after Bud Dupree went down. So that's one part of it. The second thing...
Inside linebacker
as well, because obviously Avery Williamson, Vince Williams, decisions going to be made in that, obviously with the money surrounding both of those guys. But then you got Devin Bush coming back from an ACL. Robert Spillane, who, at the time when he was healthy, played well. Obviously, towards the end when he came back in that playoff game, wasn't his best performance. But you don't have a lot of depth and pedigree inside either. So that's why, to me, I'm like, I don't think linebacker, inside or outside, is out of play in those first 2 to 3 rounds either.
Those are definitely good points.
Pieces, man. Yeah, because
I think Steeler Nation will be a little pissed, but you're right.
We've talked about this defense. We said when they've been elite, they get after the quarterback, but we definitely saw towards the end of the year they started to struggle. The pressure stopped getting there. We saw them, struggle against the run, especially at that linebacker position. So to me, I just, in knowing this is a team, they constantly draft linebackers. We talked about this team, man. They will draft a linebacker now. They be over here, hey man, death tax and still taking linebackers in the first 2 rounds. Like, this is what they do. So that's why for me, I'm just like,
How many have we had? How many we've Bud,
Let's see.
Shazier, Bush,
Shea, Jarvis,
TJ,
they were all
Jarvis.
TJ,
that's
so
5 right there.
That's 5 within a 6-7 year span.
Maybe 8.
Because Jarvis was what, 13?
I'm not
Jarvis
sure.
Jarvis was 13. Shazier was 14.
Bud
was 15. Artie Burns was 16. TJ Watt was 17.
Okay. And then Bush.
Yeah. And then Bush was 18. Think about that, man. So when I tell you that's 6 years, 5 linebackers during that span. First round linebackers on top of that. That's a lot, bro. That's all I'm saying.
I do think defense was a little more of a need, though, at that point. No? Because, we had Bell, AB, Ben. What?
And then Highsmith was the 3rd rounder last year, so you can see they constantly are taking linebackers, man. That's why for me, I'm just
even outside of linebacker, to your point of just, hey, we're gonna pick whatever guy we want. We don't really care what any of these other people's draft boards say. Claypool last year, I don't think receiver was like the most pressing need, but
absolutely.
it was up there. I don't think it was really that expected.
Well, and they said a similar thing when Cam Hayward was drafted. They said they had Cam slated so much higher to go that even though they didn't necessarily need a D tackle, D lineman type, because he was on the board when they were selecting so late in the first round, they were like, yeah, we're going to take this guy. So that could be a scenario as well where, man, if one of these guys, a guy that they have rated in the top 10 is sitting there at 24, and they're like, all right, we're going to get this guy. So that's why I'm just like, all right, I think it could be in play too. So
am I off on that? Was Claypool? Yeah, I don't know. Receiver was in the
you're
mix.
Absolutely right. No. For a fact, receivers.
We were talking like Jonathan Taylor and running backs.
Yeah, it was more so people because we were all upset about J.K. Dobbins. Remember, we didn't draft. Yeah. It was oh man, J.K. So that's what we all thought. So yeah, without a doubt, man. If they have a guy that they have rated higher and he's available, they will do that. They're not one of those teams that are, handicapped to a position. They will draft best available if it's there, without a doubt. And I think that's how it should be too, because that way you're going to get just a talented team, and you hopefully don't have to ever reach and draft a guy too early, a guy that should have been a 3rd rounder, but because you needed this running back so bad, you drafted him at the front of the 2nd round. That's not good business right there. So to me, man, them drafting just value, like in terms of just valuable players versus trying to fix needs, I think is a lot better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get more and more into this as time goes by, but that was fun to talk about at least.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And man, I guess we kind of, wrapped up the James Conner thing in there as well, man. But what were your initial thoughts on that? In terms of, the reports coming out of him more than likely not being back with the Steelers next year?
Well, we talked a little bit about it, and I think it's good for both sides. I think for Connor, maybe in the back of your mind, you're thinking, man, that would be so cool to finish out my career here in Pittsburgh, be like this epitome of a hometown hero. But maybe a fresh start could be good for him. He's been in Pittsburgh for how long? This is 8 or 9 years, and it's not even just like your professional career. I think that's maybe a little bit different, but going from college, and he grew up in Erie too, so he's been around here this whole time. And I think coming after Bell, there was a little bit more pressure on him, even though he did live up to it, I think, that first year. But injuries derailed him, and then bad quarterback play in 2019, more injuries, and then some inconsistency this year, more injuries. Just didn't fully live up to that top 10 potential that we thought he could be. So maybe he could replicate that somewhere else. Our line definitely wasn't up to par this last season. And then for us, I don't think we were going to bring him back for the amount he might be asking for in free agency. We can get very similar production with someone in the draft. I don't know if free agency's in play for us for a running back at all, but if we can upgrade the line, I think we can get pretty good production from an RB.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think in terms of free agency being in play, it's more so going to be dictated on what number Ben settles at. Whatever that number is going to dictate how much money they have to play around with in free agency. So that's going to determine that. But in terms of the change of scenery, I agree 100%. I think a similar situation when we talked about Dwayne Haskins. It's hard, man, when you're from an area to come back and play in that area. We talked about how Dwayne Haskins being from the DMV area, going to play for Washington. Obviously, James being from Erie, playing college ball at Pitt, and now you're playing for the Steelers. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of just emotional, it's draining. at times being the hero, being the hometown kid, having these expectations, then being highly criticized in the process of it. And then the things that people spoke so highly of you about in terms of what makes you so unique and so special in terms of his battle with cancer. Then they turn around and use that against him and talk about, well, now he's fragile because of things like that. Sometimes, man, just being able to just pick up and go, just getting into a place where you're no longer James Conner, the kid from Erie, the pit running back. You're just, oh, no, now that's just James Conner, number 30 for whatever team. It's a different level of just everything, expectation, scrutiny, everything that goes with that. So I think, man, him going somewhere different. And honestly, I think, man, a small market just out in the middle of nowhere type place, man, would be just a great scenario for him. Honestly, like, I don't think he needs to go somewhere where it's another highly criticized team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Dallas is a place like that, right? You want him to go there. I want him to go somewhere where it's quiet, a Carolina, something like that, right? Where even though you obviously have McCaffrey, you be the power back, right? You be the 1-2 punch and just kind of get your feet back under you, get some quality seasons back under you, get some highly productive, but 14, 15, 16 game seasons under you. I think that's a scenario that'd be best for him right now, man. Because it's, like I said, it's taxing. That's a lot to deal with, especially when you've been here your whole life.
So I think him trying to play through injuries too might have played into him staying injured, and maybe the reason he did that was being from Pittsburgh. Like, yo, I wanna show out, for my city and everything. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to the whole fresh start. But he want to
show his toughness, right? Mm-hmm. All of that stuff, man.
Yeah. So we definitely hope him the best. I mean, I guess the reports aren't official, but it came from someone from the Post-Gazette, right? They were saying it just looks like Rooney's gonna move on from him at running back.
And the reason why all of these reports started coming out was Mr. Rooney, every season, once the season's over, he'll sit down with a very select handful of the beat writers here in Pittsburgh, and he'll do a full, season report, end of the year type of scenario where he'll answer questions and stuff like that. And obviously James Conner was brought up in there because of the contract. So everything that has been leaked out now has been in response to the conversation that was had that day. So that's that, man. But yeah, I just think, man, like I said, I hope he's successful wherever he goes, man. But this is, it sucks always because, this is a kid that you have seen develop as an NFL player. And obviously the people that have connections here with him in Pittsburgh, you want to see him do well. And you wish it could be here, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, it'd be such a cool story.
Yeah,
it definitely would be. And I think if these last 2 years would have played out differently, it could have finished out being a different story. But
without a doubt,
is what it is. What else we got?
Man, so we actually had a couple. We got two more things, man. We had a cool. Well, I don't know if it's cool yet. We're gonna find out in a second. But the Pro Bowl was this weekend, so. Obviously, they had to do a different version of the Pro Bowl because of COVID, the pandemic. They wanted to do something virtual. And it was funny because initially, I was unaware of this. So I see...
you didn't even know.
So I knew they weren't doing the Pro Bowl, but I didn't know what they were going to do as an alternative because obviously throughout the week, they would show the different highlights and the verses thing. And I'm just like, all right, I'm not really tuning into that type of stuff. But then it says virtual Pro Bowl. So I'm like, let me click on this thing. And they're gaming. I'm like, bro, what is this right here? And I see Bubba Wallace. And shout out to my NASCAR guy. So I'm like, all right, I know Bubba. Shout out to Bubba. He just signed with the Jordan deal. Like, I like it. And I know NASCAR's about to start back up. And it will be allowing fans. So, you might catch your boy somewhere.
Okay.
But so I'm looking. I'm like, I see Bubba Wallace. I see Snoop Dogg. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Marshawn. I'm like, all right. And then I'm starting to catch. I'm like, oh, they're playing the game. But then I'm like, all right, are they all playing? Is he coaching? Because
no, it was one per quarter.
Right? Yeah. But you hear like the different guys like trying to coach him up and give him tips. I'm just like, it was cool, but I'm not gonna lie, it didn't keep my attention. I probably watched 5 minutes in the turn, bro.
I didn't even last that long. I knew it was on. I didn't turn it on. But then I go to YouTube, NFL, all right, maybe they'll have some highlights from it. Maybe I could at least see what was happening. I turned that shit off in like a minute, dude. I was like, bro, no.
Seriously, I like my children, they love just getting on YouTube and watching people play the game. I was like, for me, I don't like watching other people. So when I'm watching, I'm just like, I feel like I'm watching y'all play the game. Like if I'm playing with y'all, it's different, but it didn't do it for me. And literally, I turned off that to watch a rerun of the Senior Bowl. That's how bad it was for me, bro.
I thought
I was like, I just can't do it.
I didn't know how they were gonna do it, but I don't even know if this is possible. But I think the coolest way they could have done it is somehow to get. See, I don't even know if this is possible, just because the amount of controllers you can have on a certain system. But if you had
like what you're talking about,
everyone individually playing as their actual character, that would be so cool.
Man.
That would have been really cool. I don't know how that would have been possible, because then you'd have to sub someone out after the first quarter.
Right.
But that would have been crazy cool.
I think back to like the original like PlayStation system, and you could get the little like adapter where you could plug up to like 4 controllers in there, and all 4 people could play on one team, or however you want to do it. So I just don't know, like you said, to that extent the capabilities of it. Because
you got to think, this is the NFL. This is Madden, EA Sports. How long have you had to plan for this? You could have done that. You could have made that possible somehow. That would have been cool.
It would have. It definitely would have, man.
Like I might have actually tuned in for that, and actually had it kept my attention. You know.
Like for me, it was cool. It was a couple little funny moments. Bubba Wallace talking about like when they were asking him in terms of just, you know, the athletes, so you like your matchups. He's like, all I do is turn left for a living. I'm like, all right, that's cool, because the NASCAR joke. But other than that, I'm like, I'm not about to tune in to watch Bubba Wallace play the video game. I mean, I'm just not doing it. And I'm like, I like Marshawn, but I can see Marshawn on a commercial. Like, it's cool. I'm good with that. And then I can see Snoop. I want to see Snoop. I'm gonna put on the Nate Robinson fight because he was gold right there.
He was amazing. Yeah.
You know, but other than that, I'm like, I don't want to necessarily watch, you know, him play Madden. Like, I don't even want to play Madden all the way. I already told you that. So yeah, it's just it was, I like the try. I like how they were trying to, you know, be.
What else were you gonna do?
Right, that was the thing. It's not a lot. And I was also wondering when I found that out as well. I was like, man, how many of these guys even play video games or even were interested in doing that? And I think that kind of also put them in that situation where you're stuck dealing with such a small amount of players, you know, in terms of the actual virtual Pro Bowl like that, man.
Yeah, my idea would have been amazing. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie.
I like your idea, man. I like your idea.
One more bit of news here.
Hey, yes, indeed, man. So we had a mega trade in the NFL over the weekend. The Lions and the Rams, man. They traded first overall quarterbacks, man. So the Lions, what the Lions gave away was Matt Stafford. They traded him to the Rams. And then for the Rams, what they traded to the Lions was Jared Goff, their starting quarterback. 2 first-round picks, one in the 2022 draft and then the other in the 2023 draft, and then also their 3rd-round draft pick for the 2021 draft. So, yeah, definitely a sizable amount of assets, both draft-wise and obviously quarterback-wise. This is a guy in Jared Goff who the Rams had just signed to an extension last year, I believe. And you see what they all gave up for Matt Stafford. But to me, I still feel like this was a great scenario for almost all parties. Okay. I feel like for the Rams, this is a surefire win. This is a major upgrade at quarterback. They've obviously been in win now mode the past 3 years. You can see how aggressive they've been through free agency and through just trades these past couple of years. And obviously it's gotten them to a Super Bowl. It's got them to a divisional round in the playoffs, back 2 years now as well. And like I said, man, you're getting
I don't think they've had a losing season under McVay.
They haven't. Yeah. They haven't. Yeah, so you think about that, and now you get a quarterback that's going to be able to match what McVay wants to do. Think about that, because obviously with Goff, I can tell you from experience, like we would tell you, man, you could hear McVay having to tell Goff where to go with the ball. I mean, they would do the hurry up offense. So we talked about how the Patriots caught on to that and how they combated it, you know, in terms of just being a little bit slower in terms of getting out their huddle, or a little bit slower to show a certain look defensively. And it showed, because Goff struggled mightily, in that game and going forward since then. Matt Stafford, though, man, he can make every throw. He's extremely smart, competitive, and you don't have to question his toughness. Not only has he played through some crazy injuries, he's played in Detroit. He doesn't win a lot in Detroit. So if you could, seriously, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, give me a guy that shows up to work every day for a losing team over this front runner from a winning team, because the front runner, as soon as he gets hit in the mouth, as soon as things go bad, you see them shut down. You see their play disappear. You see them get down in the dumps. Whereas that guy who's been a part of that losing team, he's hungry. He wants to do whatever it takes to win. And I just think that we're going to see that with Stafford. When you put Stafford out there in LA with McVay, with a legit team, dude, they're going to be bona fide like favorites in the NFC. That's what I think that trade is for the Rams. So that's why I think the Rams definitely won. I think Matt Stafford is a huge upgrade. You go from Detroit and that disaster that you had, from an organizational standpoint, coaching standpoint, to now you're going to a stable situation, a situation where it's a lot more optimism around it. Now, granted, it's going to be more pressure on you to perform, but they're not asking you to do something that you're not capable of. And that's the other thing. You've done that, and you've already played with top pedigree receivers in terms of Calvin Johnson. So you're not going to go in there and be starstruck. You're not going to be wowed. You've already had talent before. But in terms of, and even the Lions, I think it's a win for them. I think that, number one, they get rid of Stafford and, a large portion of that contract. But at the same time, they're getting draft picks. And we talk about, draft picks can be very, very valuable if you use them correctly. And you got a stopgap in terms of, all right, this is my bridge quarterback. If he comes in here and impresses, great. If not, I got these first round picks. I can go draft our successor and be fine. But the loser in this deal, without a doubt,
I was going to say, hold on. Okay.
Yes, without a doubt. Jared Goff is the loser in this, man. He goes from the perfect scenario where he had the high-powered offense in terms of McVay pulling the strings. They had a nice, talented system around him. Obviously, he was able to thrive under Todd Gurley. And then this past year, he had Cam Akers. Defense, like I said, everything was stable. They were winning all the time. It's, when you're winning all the time, people don't necessarily come for your job the same way. Now you're going to Detroit, where it's, like I said, organizational dysfunction. They're going through another change. And I don't know if you heard the press conference for the new head coach there.
I did not.
It was kind of weird. He was talking about biting legs, and if I get knocked down.
I remember when Miami hired him as the interim head coach like 5 years ago. Yeah. And he was like that. He was like so intense, man.
Yeah.
I was shocked he was like up for head coaching this, in 2020. Like I couldn't believe it.
Well, we've all been laughing because, when obviously Eric Bieniemy didn't get a head coaching opportunity this year, and the rumors now where he's not a good interviewer, we're just like, well, this dude's talking about biting kneecaps. You got the guy in Philly who I don't even know.
That was bad too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, he was just nervous. I'm like, if that's nervous, I mean, like, what did Bieniemy do then? Like he had to go in there and exactly he couldn't read for him to be a baddie, because it couldn't have been worse than that stuff that I just saw, man. But when you think about Goff, that's what he has to walk into now. His first meeting in Detroit is going to be drastically different than with McVay. And then when you talk about just the team and the roster and the way that it's constructed, and then the division as well, that's not the best scenario for Goff. Goff is going into a situation, like I said, where it's very much bad. And who even knows if the Lions even believe in Goff? They could be looking at Goff as, like I said, the stopgap in between draft picks. They could draft a guy this year and use Goff as trade bait. Hey, man, we'll trade Goff to this team for a couple other draft picks. So just knowing all of that, I just don't like the scenario for him at all. And it sucks, but you brought it on yourself. I mean, when you sign these extensions, if your play isn't up to par, that is what happens. I mean, that's the shrewd business element of it. And why multiple teams do operate like that. They don't have that necessarily loyal element to it, because you would assume that this guy took them to a Super Bowl, you would be a little more loyal, but just not the case right now, man.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said with Goff and about being like a stopgap quarterback. They might even release him after next year, because some of the stuff I was looking into was like his contract's really bad this year, but the dead money isn't as bad for the next few years, so you can actually cut him and potentially not face as bad of consequences. I'm kind of with you. I initially thought, I was like, Lions won this deal to get 2 firsts and a third this year, plus Jared Goff, who as a career, he hasn't had an awful career. He's just been playing bad these past couple seasons. But then
and Goff is still, like I said, he's good, but he's the bottom tier of the good class. In terms of, is he going to flirt around that 4,000? Yes, he can flirt around there, but is he a guy that can win you a game with his arm?
That's what he's going into with Detroit,
right.
what you're going to have to do.
Absolutely.
But I thought about it more and more. If you have a chance to get a guy that you think is going to put you over the top, I guess you just do it. Because if we look at the trade and it was maybe a first, a second, and a third in Goff, I think a lot of people would say, oh, Rams won this deal. But since it's just 2 firsts, maybe it's the whole branding with, oh, man, first-round picks.
Yeah.
You got to think, too, with the Rams up to this point, McVay only not having a losing season up to this point, how many draft picks have they traded back and forth and not having first-round picks up to this point, and they've still been fine?
I mean, you think about what they gave up to get Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they don't mind.
To get Jared Goff, too.
Absolutely. They don't mind moving pieces. And then for them, they're looking at this and saying, well, what's better right now, a first-round draft pick or Matthew Stafford? And to me, I don't have an issue with any of these quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, the guys we just named. But as it pertains to 2021, if I'm going into that season and I could get Matthew Stafford, absolutely give me Stafford, man. Because obviously they would have to give up, I think, a lot more to have moved up to a spot to be able to draft one of these younger quarterbacks, right? And if you're Jacksonville, why would you flirt or even consider moving or moving out of that spot? Because you obviously know, hey, Trevor Lawrence, the guy I want to take. So thinking about that, I don't think the situation was best that way,
Yeah, and I feel like with Stafford, if you're trading for one of those first-round quarterbacks, like you're going to be tied to him for the next 3-4 years. Like I think your job's kind of tied to him, right?
Yeah.
With Stafford, I think it's like a 1 or 2 year thing where you're trying him out here because I think both of us agree. I think we had Stafford in like our top 10, 11, 12 last year. Like I think we believe in Stafford. At the same time, I mean, he hasn't had that much winning with the Lions. At the same time, it was the Lions. Now it's like your real chance. All right, everything's around you, perfect for you. Let's see what you can do. So there is a little bit of pressure there. We're thinking that he's going to live up to it, but there's a chance that he doesn't. And in that case, Rams could just move on from you then.
Hey, this year or next year, you move on, wash your hands, and you're through with it. Obviously, it'll be criticized and things like that. But in the moment, I love the trade for the Rams because this makes them that much more closer to winning the Super Bowl. With Jared Goff, I feel like the longer he was there, they were moving further away from being legit contenders.
That's fair. Again. Yeah. At least you're closer for these next 2 years, maybe.
Without a doubt, Matthew Stafford is a huge upgrade over Jared Goff at quarterback. Not only eyeball test, but like I said, playing against these guys, Stafford can ball. Stafford is definitely the guy that I think is going to take that team over the top. I'm a fan of him in that scenario with McVay and the pieces that they already have in place there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I lean towards the Rams winning the trade a little bit, but it goes back to what you're saying. It seems like all parties want, maybe outside of Goff, just because the Lions are in full rebuild mode right now. Yeah,
right. And that's the thing. If the Lions weren't in full rebuild and they were legitimately looking at Goff as, hey, this is the piece that we're missing, then I'm like, yo, Goff, this is a great scenario, but I don't think that they are looking at him.
He did say, at least I'm somewhere they believe in me. So
he said it, and you know what it sounded like? It's kind of like, hey, man, I got dumped, but you know what? At least now I'm on the market. Somebody's going to love me. That's what we're doing now. It's like, it was more so they wanted to get rid of Stafford, and they wanted to do the rebuild. All right, where do you want to go, Stafford? All right, cool. We'll see you there. It's courtesy for
everywhere but New England.
Tip the cap. I heard that. And then I also they were talking about the reports of it because Patricia, which I did kind of like. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. I can see it. That'll be super petty, though.
I wonder with the New England thing if it was just, I don't know, maybe because everyone talks about not having fun up in New England. It's so regimented. He's 32 years old.
He wasn't having fun in Detroit. Come on, he wasn't having no fun in Detroit.
Yeah,
he was getting his head beat in.
I guess I'm reaching. I don't know why New England then.
But see, I thought
if it's not Patricia, if we take that out of play,
so I said either Patricia or the Brady element.
Okay.
Because you think about this, Cam Newton is very different in terms of his approach. So he wasn't viewed as the replacement to Brady. I felt like he was just so different in styles. Whereas if Stafford goes to New England, Stafford's style is Brady-esque in terms of pass heavy. It's not this athlete, this big burly guy that can run around and do some things like Cam can. This is a guy that's going to throw that rock and air it out and things like that. And I just think that he would have been directly compared to Brady a lot more than how people view Cam Newton going up there in New England. And also it was a transition year for New England as well, right? In terms of, man, who knew what they were going to look like, the opt-outs and everything like that transpired. I just think...
And their talent is shit on offense. If you just want to get to that, like, they don't have any weapons.
Right. So when I think of all that, I'm just like, yeah, I can see why Stafford wouldn't want to deal with that, because that's going to be kind of hectic. And that division is, obviously on the come up, man. You obviously got the Bills you'll be dealing with, the Dolphins you'll be dealing with. Who knows what's going to happen with the Jets? But it's a different scenario. Whereas obviously with the Rams, they've already they haven't dominated their division, but they've established themselves as legitimate contenders.
They finished first,
right?
Like not in the regular season, but in postseason, they're the ones that beat the Seahawks in the playoffs.
And they've had success in that division for multiple years now. Whereas obviously New England were on their time has come, and now it's all right. They're in rebuild mode. They're trying to retool and figure out themselves up there. So that's another reason why I can see Stafford just saying, "Hey, I've already came from this situation in Detroit. Why would I want to go back to that in New England where I'm going to be scrutinized even more so?"
That's just hilarious, though. The one team. Like, why not the Patriots and the Jets or the Patriots and another shitty team?
I'm with you, man. Even though I don't think people talk about the New York media, but because the Jets, I still don't think it would have been the same because I don't think anyone believes the Jets are going to be good. Whereas if Stafford goes to New England, the expectation would be that they're supposed to be good.
Yeah.
And we would look at them like that. And I just think the expectation for him and the criticism surrounding him would be a lot more intense compared to if he went to one of those other teams like that.
Yeah, he'd have to carry an offense kind of like what he's been doing with the Lions, but way worse talent. Man. Way worse.
Yes.
Nothing.
Yes, indeed, man. And you can be outside. You remember he's been playing in a dome, so that's another element of it, man.
There's all these little Boston things that add up.
I'm just saying, playing in Boston is a lot different than Detroit. In a dome, way different than LA.
Yeah.
It does play a factor in that thing, man.
Is that all we got? We got one more that I wanted to toss out.
I feel like I forget something. I think you got us. Yeah, what you got us, man?
JJ Watt. Is it time?
Yeah.
Is it time, dude? Are things actually playing out?
A Watt reunion? Wattage? A three-piece of Watt? Is that what we're doing?
We joked about it a little bit last year whenever they brought in Derek Watt. JJ Watt's contract was really shitty.
Yeah.
You didn't really think the Texans were actually going to trade him or, release him, anything like that. But I don't know. It's looking like it. There's a lot of dysfunction with the Texans. Yeah. And there's reports saying that JJ Watt's played his last snap with the Texans.
And he was the guy when their season ended. He went up to Deshaun Watson and said, "I'm sorry for wasting another year of your career here." He did say that. So he was the first one to start up the Deshaun Watson leaving Texans train. And obviously he's driving it. So yeah.
So maybe he was talking
him to be on that.
He was talking about himself too. It's like both of us, let's get out of here.
It wasted both our towns. Let's both come to Pittsburgh, bro. It's all up.
Whoa. You just had to toss that in there, huh?
But either way, put it like this. I don't think that, it's zero chance. I do think that it could happen, but it still falls back to the guy that we talked about at the beginning of this thing, 7. What number is he willing to play for? The lower that number is, the more fun we can have in terms of free agency pieces, in terms of trades and acquiring, higher end talent. So that's the thing. I mean, if you could talk to your guy, get him to come back for that super low number, I could make some phone calls to get to JJ. We know that. That's all I'm saying.
Dude, you heard
that connection's there.
You heard the quote. I don't have to say anything. It was with an exclamation mark, man.
That's what I'm saying, man. So if your boy gets his number low, I could call my boy and then we get that situation taken care of. All right.
Do you know how it could work on JJ's end? Because his contract's bad right now, but how could he restructure that in some way?
No. And I want to say that this year,
because what if he wanted to play for a minimum to play with his brothers?
What I was going to say, the Texans, I would have to look at it again, but it was I want to say it was this year because we looked at it last year. I want to say it was this year that they can cut him and that dead money shouldn't be as bad. It was either, I'm going to pull it up.
That'll be dead money for them though, right?
Right, yeah, for them, yes.
But
so
that would make it so releasing him makes sense for them at least.
Right.
Because you don't want to cut him and it's like $20 million in dead money. You're not even getting any draft picks back from a team. Okay.
Exactly. So let me check real quick, see what his cap hit is in 2021.
Because a trade would be definitely tougher then.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I feel like he's definitely got a market though still, right? Or do you think it depends on the contract? I
think the contract plays a huge portion of it because obviously it's a conversation like Ben. Is his productivity worth the number? But
because he'd probably be like a 60% snap guy. Well, I guess it would even depend on if we brought Dupree back.
So here we go. So in 2021, he has a base salary of $17.5, but no prorated bonus. Cap hit is $17.5. Yeah, so if they cut him, it has zero dead money.
No way.
So they could cut him and walk away. Yeah, because literally the way it looks, I'm trying to see when he redid this deal. But 19 was the last year of the prorated bonus. 20 it didn't have anything, and then 21 has zero for the prorated bonus, and then his dead money is zero. Cap savings would be $17.5 million if they were to do such a thing, and that's based on over the cap. So I mean, like I said, it could.
That could kind of make sense then, right?
Right, and that was the thing, yeah. So even on Spot Rack, it's the same thing. So they have it as 15 point. Excuse me, Yep, 17.5 because he made the 15.5 last year. So, yeah, they could make a move on him. I don't see anything up here. Yeah, because all his signing bonus money has been paid. He had the $30 million fully guaranteed.
They basically do it the opposite of us.
Yeah, they front loaded his, whereas we kick the can and hit you on the back end.
Okay.
But
because some team might not want to trade and take on that contract.
Yeah, seriously, man.
So, dude, it might be in play.
Because, all of his bonuses hit in 16 and 17. And now from there, he just has a workout bonus for $500,000. That's it.
Dude.
Yeah. All his other stuff is gone. Yep. 2015, they restructured him, converted a $10 million roster bonus into a $5 million signing bonus. Yeah. Yep. They definitely could, man.
This
and if they did that, if they did that, now it's a different conversation. If they release him, now it's just open season, free negotiation. If JJ can have an offer for $20 million, but can say, hey, I want to play with my brother for $2 million, and he could do that in theory, without a doubt. So yeah, I mean, now it's just more so what the Texans are going to do. Do they want to do the full rebuild of cutting him? Obviously, you'll have a lot more cap space to operate and do your rebuild. But if you're going to do that, you might as well get rid of Watson. But the flip side, they keep saying that they don't want to trade Watson. Have you seen those reports?
I did see that.
I've been seeing those. So to me, and obviously Watson officially requested a trade. So seeing that as well, to me, I'm just like, man, go ahead and blow the whole thing.
It seems like Watt wants out though. There's all those reports that saying he played his last snap. He requested.
Absolutely,
I don't know if they said he requested a trade, but all the signs are pointing that way as well.
Absolutely.
So, even if they somehow keep Watson, I don't think it's out of bounds for them to maybe even just cut Watt though. At the same time, maybe they rebuild with Watson in a way. I don't know how much Watson wants to be doing that though.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, if you're Deshaun, do you really want to be a part of that rebuild, new coach after the situation you just had to endure these first couple of years of your career? I personally wouldn't, especially knowing how quarterbacks are criticized anyways. I don't personally want to deal with that thing. And obviously, JJ, you could hear his frustration and the reports, I mean, that came out between him and his dysfunction with Bill O'Brien, and obviously that linking a little bit to O'Brien, his departure as well. If you're JJ, I'm just like, man, I can see the scenario where you want to get out of there as well, man. And what better place to relocate than come on down to Pittsburgh, play with your brothers, man. It's a dope feeling. You know, we already got the Edmonds brothers here. We do that. Come on. Come on. It's a family affair around here, baby. Just like sliding them, slide the game. It's a family affair.
It would be epic, dude. It might be in play.
Yes, indeed, man. Yes, indeed.
If you're Deshaun, does he have a no trade clause?
Who, Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Deshaun has a no trade clause. So
I was gonna say, you got to make sure you don't go to the Jets or some shitty organization because you don't want to bounce from one to the other like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we said initially, that Deshaun does have the ball in his court and the power in this situation because of the no trade clause. The issue is this, though. Even though he has leverage from the no trade clause so he can dictate where he goes, the Texans have leverage in terms of them right now saying that they don't want to trade him. So
yeah, because then you're taking on fines and not getting paid, right? And stuff. And you don't want that either.
The next move, I think it's going to have to, and people have already been talking about this, is Deshaun having to go the hardball route to kind of force his way out the door, similar to what AB did here. Just because with him being under contract, as long as he's under contract, the team will win in the end. They can just keep finding you, keep finding you, keep finding you. Obviously, it would be a public headache. And I don't think that Cicero, the new coach down there, would want to deal, or excuse me, the new GM down there would want to deal with that in year one. But they could want to play hardball with it. But then I can see a scenario where Deshaun might say, you know what? Okay, y'all gonna make me play. I'm gonna come out here and play, but I'm not gonna, play my best. I'm gonna go out here and just give you the bare minimum. That's another alternative as well. So it's going to be, like I said, interesting to see how they proceed. But if I'm the Texans, man, I'm hitting the reset button. I don't think that this is the best situation. Like, we're already off on the bat on the wrong foot. And if we're going to be rebuilding anyways, let me get the full gamut and then at least draft my guy, a guy that that he's going to like me and want to be here as well. I don't want hostages. I want volunteers. You hear Coach Tomlin talk about that, right? When it turns to guys and contracts. And
that's right. I mean, AB and Martavis. Man. I mean, that's
absolutely, man.
So yeah, I guess is that all we got?
Man, I think I'm looking at the notes. Yeah, it's a lot,
dude. That was a good podcast.
Shout out to the Primetime Podcast, man. This was
this was good. Yeah, for sure.
Primetime virtual, man. We switching it up, man. We giving y'all hot. All right. Absolutely. So hopefully, hey man, what's the update? Did we get a Pens win? But before we sign off, did the Pens win?
Oh, bro, I was gonna tell you, you were in the middle of something. They lost 3-1. Rangers scored on an empty net.
Oh man. Okay. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You didn't hear it here first because obviously we're not live. But by the time you've heard this, if it's probably in the morning, you will know that the Pens were unsuccessful and we are sad. But either way, it was fun. It was a blast. So shout out to everybody for tuning in. Shout out to everybody that's been subscribing to the movement. And until next time.
Peace.